Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Thursday. Let's chat for a little while about romantic relationships with non-pagans. Now, I haven't seen any hard statistical data about what percentage of pagans are with other pagans and which are with non-pagans, but it's a scenario that a lot of people find themselves in, myself included. I am married to someone who is agnostic, and sometimes it can be a little bit difficult territory to navigate when you have people with very different worldviews. And since this is a common experience, just thought we could start a conversation with it. So, first question in this discussion is: are you in or out of the broom closet where your partner is concerned? Now, people have a lot of reasons for still being in the broom closet and for their spouse or for their romantic partner not to be aware of what they actually believe and what they actually practice on the spiritual level. Maybe they never found the words to tell them. Perhaps you had your spiritual awakening and you came to paganism after you met or even married your spouse. And so you're in the situation of you're just not quite sure how to break the ice, and the longer time goes on, just the harder it seems to be able to do that. But there's the obvious problem is that when you're in the broom closet, the threat of exposure is always hanging over your head. And it's the primary reason why I think if you are going through a period of spiritual exploration, you don't have to tell your spouse or your partner that, yes, I am definitely converting to X, Y, or Z. Just simply be honest with them, saying that, you have some questions, you're doing some exploring, you're consulting different points of view, and you're trying to figure out where you're being drawn and what you really believe. Simply telling them that is probably going to be prudent in the long run. That way, if you do end up changing your religion, they are prepared for the fact and they've probably been part of your active thought process as you've gone through that. However, if you leave them in the dark, then that means you've got a pretty big secret in between the two of you. I mean, who you worship, what you believe, those are pretty fundamental to a person's life and I suppose I will say even identity and certainly their worldview. And if your partner is in the dark, well, first, that is being pretty dishonest with them. They're not just, Joe Blow who's randomly walking down the street who, doesn't have any need to know who you really are. We're talking about someone you're in love with, someone who you may be married to. And the longer it goes on, of course, the wider that chasm tends to get. And then you got to ask yourself, how do you intend to handle the fallout if/when your secret comes out and your spouse might feel betrayed? And keep in mind, the betrayal might not just be because they disagree with you on spiritual matters. That could be part of it, but it could simply be them having a sense of betrayal because your relationship wasn't built on an honest basis, or that you had something significant going on with you. You were actually changing your belief system and you didn't think you could come to them with that. It can put them in a position of asking themselves, what else have you not told them? Which, that is a can of worms and a rabbit hole you do not want your relationship going down. And it can also make them wonder about, well, how much confidence does this person have in me? Maybe our relationship isn't as solid as I thought. And once you start going down that track, it isn't always possible to do damage control. So that really is why I think it's better to be upfront. I think if you are exploring spiritually, it's better just to say that you are. They might be opposed then. They might be enthusiastic. They might be indifferent, but at least they'll know what's going on. It's very hard to have confidence in a relationship when you discover that you don't even really know anything about that person. That takes people to very scary territory. It makes them vulnerable, and it's like taking a cornerstone out of the foundation of a building. Building's not going to continue to stand. So let's talk about possible fallout. Whether you're telling someone at the beginning of your relationship, or if it's been going on for a while and they just weren't aware and now they know. If they are opposed, first and foremost, let's keep in mind that opposition can be either passive or active. And passive opposition would be kind of that grumbling disapproval or I can't believe she's doing whatever it is that she does again, or just a sense of I don't want to use the word boredom, but just kind of a oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's my kook. I don't wish I'd known about that particular little quirk of theirs, but here we are. I guess I'll just suffer in silence and just deal. Uh, this isn't going to necessarily be an untenable situation. It can be very awkward, especially at first. However, if their bond between both people is sincere and genuine, you might be able to work out a system to where when you are at your rituals or you're doing your spell work or you're doing your studies or whatever else that you're doing, that could be the time that your partner is using for pursuits that they're interested in that you're not. Because, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, in any relationship, I don't think you are going to find two people whose interests and pursuits are so perfectly aligned that they don't have a single activity that one partner is disinterested in or indeed would prefer to have nothing to do with. You can negotiate your way around this. However, active opposition to your spirituality is a different matter. And the trouble is that if someone is actively opposed, there's probably going to be an attempt to change you. They think you're wrong, and they could think you're wrong from a more atheistic perspective or from a more other religious kind of perspective. But the goal, nevertheless, is to change your mind, or at least to browbeat you to the point to where you act as though you have adopted their own view that they want you to adopt, whether that's a non-religious worldview, or if it's saying, why, of course I'll go back to church with you, dear. I'm sure that Bible study is just the thing I need. And then you end up trying to give a convincing performance so that they'll believe you, or at least convince themselves that they believe you, that you've converted and that, everything is now, on an even keel again. That doesn't sound like a recipe for domestic harmony to me. I just don't think it's a good idea to be in that situation for either party. Another way that opposition can manifest is far more troubling, and it's the scenario in which your spouse is really upset and really angry because they didn't know. And some people, depending on their own worldview, if they had known you were pagan or if they had known that you were converting to paganism, that they would not have chosen to be with you. And that's a very harsh reality, but we are adults here, and I think adults need to get a lot better at facing the harsh, unpleasant realities of life and dealing with them accordingly. So, in addition to the sense of betrayal of, oh, you had this gigantic secret, and now I don't know if I can trust you anymore, uh, because they could be opposed to your beliefs or simply opposed to the fact that you didn't confide in them, it could lead to a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting, a great deal of conflict on just an ongoing, unrelenting basis. In that case, the relationship has been poisoned. And you're going to be in the very unfortunate position of having to think about whether or not it's going to be possible or if it's prudent to continue on with that relationship. And this is a scenario that could have been completely avoided if, again, you were upfront with them in the beginning or that you at least told them what you were up to when you began your explorations. It's sad, but sometimes we do create our own relationship hells, and I think this would be one situation in which the pagan who was so broom closeted that they wouldn't even tell their spouse that they are creating their own turmoil in their domestic sphere. So, what about happier possibilities if your partner is neutral or even supportive? I want to say, let's give 3 cheers for neutrality and indifference. Your spouse may not necessarily take your beliefs seriously, but they aren't deriding you or attempting to convert you or trying to stop you, and that means it isn't reflecting your relationship or the atmosphere in the household. Hooray! There's a lot to be said for this. I'm not saying that it would be absolutely the most ideal thing, but in a lot of ways, I think it can be. I would certainly put my husband into the category of neutral and indifference. It doesn't matter to him one way or the other if I continue to be a pagan witch or not. Uh, Either way, I am the person that he knows, and I've always been very upfront with him about my thought process and things that I wrestle with on the philosophical level, on the theological level. He knows who he is dealing with. He knows who he married, and he has a core knowledge of his character that says, okay, I'm in this for the long haul, and she's keeping me informed about whatever's going on inside her brain. So she'll do what she needs to do, and I'll just carry on here in my happy little agnostic self. And the closest thing I'll have to a religion is the racetrack. I mean, that's who he is. His entire family, by the way, they love their dirt track racing. They love race cars. They love cars in general. So if there was a family religion, it would have something to do with automobiles and making them drive very, very fast. So that's the neutral and different scenario. But supposing that they are supportive, and so supportive this that your spouse might even be enthusiastic about their practice. They might want to learn more about the traditions you engage in, think it's fun. They might say, oh, that's what a great idea. Can I help you decorate when you do the sabbats? Or, do you want to help me cook? Or I saw this book and it had to do with this, and I got it for you because I was thinking of you. In a lot of ways, this is the dream. And those of us who are lucky enough to experience that have been very blessed. And one benefit of having a spouse who's either neutral or who's open or friendly to pagan beliefs is that it simplifies your relationship. It simplifies it a great deal, not only in how things go in between you on the romantic realms, but also just how you are able to get along in a quiet, undramatic way to run the household, even about how you're making decisions about how to raise your children or what you're doing for retirement and everything else. It's because you don't have this great big overarching thing that one person isn't comfortable with. Now, another benefit, if your spouse is somewhat enthused especially, is that they might go through their own period of spiritual exploration. And whether or not they decide to stick with the religion they know, or to take up yours, or to take up another form of paganism, or whatever else, they can have confidence that you will show them the support that they've given you, because you've already established that level of trust and that level of I just want to know what's going on with you, and that will help ease their stress on whatever they end up deciding to do about their own spirituality. So, I consider this the beginning of a conversation about what it's like to have relationships with non pagans. I'd love to hear other people chime in about how things have gone in their own relationships. At what point did they decide to break the news? If they haven't broken the news yet, how they might decide to do that. And I also would love to hear about people who are in relationships with other pagans. I mean, what is that like? I've actually never been with someone who was pagan, so I would be very curious to hear about how that changes the dynamic. It doesn't make it spiritually simple or spiritually complicated. Anyway, let me know either here in the comment section below, or if you would come see me on Discord at Blackbird's Brew. There is a link to join in the description box below. But in the meantime, I hope you will subscribe to this channel and like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!